Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Bhupendra Kumar Som. Welcome to this particular webinar, which is a very important webinar, in today's context when we talk about National Education Policy 2020. I am Director Lloyd Business School, as I have mentioned earlier, and this webinar was planned by All India Council of Technical Education, and as a higher education institution, it becomes our moral responsibility to start this kind of campaign in which we can spread the awareness. Might be this education policy is implemented from 2022 onwards because of the COVID pandemic and the preparation of the governments. So before that, as much as the people are aware about it, then it will be really great for people to understand it, and the implementation is definitely going to be very, very smooth. So first, on the behalf of Lloyd Business School, I would like to welcome the esteemed guests. We have with us, I'll start with our Honorable Group Director, Dr. Vandana Arora Sethi. She has joined us. And I'm really thankful for her, as out of her busy schedule, she could manage to take out some time to start the inaugural session and everything. And then we have the esteemed panelists with us for 3 invited talks. That means we have with us Dr. Vikas Gupta, Registrar of Delhi University, Dr. Anil Kumar, State Project Administrator of State Implementation Unit, Uttar Pradesh from AICTE. We have with us Dr. J.K. Goyal, Advisor JIMS Rohini and former Director of JIMS Rohini. And I think Dr. Vandana is there, ma'am?
I would like to welcome everybody for this webinar, especially our esteemed guest for today, Dr. Vikas Gupta, who is the Registrar of Delhi University, and Dr. Anil Kumar, we have interacted earlier also, who is AICTE State Project Administrator, and Sir takes care of TQIP 3, which is a World Bank assisted project under Ministry of Education, Government of India. So it is such a pleasure and honor to interact with both of you, and we're looking forward to listening to you. Also, we'll have Dr. J.K. Goyal, who is Advisor JIMS and former Professor at Delhi University. We'll have talks from these 3 eminent guests for the AICTE session today, which is done under the guidance of AICTE on implementation of National Education Policy 2020. Also, we have with us our director, very capable director, Dr. Bhupendra Som, who has taken initiative for organizing this webinar and getting everybody on board together. In fact, it's a very proud moment to also tell that we are going to have today with us participants from 26 colleges from across India, and 48 participants so far had registered, as I was told by last night. I hope they join soon. We have with us faculty of our Lloyd Business School who shall be listening to all the eminent speakers. In fact, national education policy, as we have been listening to so many webinars, we've been reading about it in the newspaper after it was announced by the center last year, that it was the third, national education policy after the ones which were released in 1968 and which was modified in 1986, and after that came in 1992. In fact, this policy, also marked the first NEP in the 21st century, and it brought several changes to the current education system. It was really nice to see that this policy removed the traditional lines between various streams of education and gave it a very holistic education to the new generation of students. And we are really looking forward to the implementation of NEP throughout the nation. In fact, I was just listening to PM Modi. He was speaking at this AIU session on this Wednesday only. He said that this policy, national education policy, is futuristic and it is as per the global standard. It aims at empowering the students to take part in national development, which has been the vision of Dr. S. Radhakrishnan. So with that global and futuristic view, a policy which has been drafted and which is soon going to be implemented, I'm sure whatever lacunae that we had in our education system in India, especially when it comes to, having a holistic view of education. So we have been having those traditional lines of confining a child to only the kind of education that they are getting. But now those barriers, those lines are going to be breaking. We are heading towards a more multidisciplinary education, a more cross-dimensional kind of education. And I'm sure our children, the generation from now is going to have, a more broader outlook and a more holistic education, as we call it. So I am myself looking forward to listening to the eminent guests that we have today. Also, at the
Dr. Vikas Gupta, Registrar of Delhi University. And let me give a little introduction about Dr. Vikas Gupta. He is a founder, senior director, national. He was a former senior director, National Testing Agency, apex body of MHRD. And earlier, he was a joint registrar at University of Delhi, and he started his career as a lecturer in electronics from.
At the outset, I convey my sincere thanks to the person who linked me to today's presentation, Dr. Kanchan Kohli, who is associated with the Lalite Group now. And I'm also thankful for the brief introduction about national education policy and a very nice introduction given by Dr. Vandana ji. At the same time, the other respected speakers, Dr. Anil ji, Dr. Goyal, and definitely the director of the institute, Dr. Som, and my dear participants. So the national education policy is a concern for all of us also at the same time, because we want to go ahead with its implementation to the fullest extent. See, this education policy, it came after a gap of 34 years. The earlier education policy came back in 1986, with the program of action came in 1992. And this education policy now came in 2020 with an exhaustive consultation. This policy was initially put on the website of the Government of India in 2019, inviting suggestions from all the stakeholders. So more than 250,000 suggestions were received by the government, and all these suggestions were incorporated by the committee which drafted the national education policy. The committee was headed by Dr. K. Kasturirangan, who was the chairman of this national education policy, which was finally rolled out by the Government of India on 29th July 2020. So giving a final stamp to this policy that we are going to implement it with full force. Now, this forum, I'm going to discuss only about the features which are concerning the higher education. There are two parts of this national education policy. The first part is concerning school education, and the second part is concerning higher education. So I would not say these are the two parts. Rather, this is the holistic education policy, which is carrying a child from school to higher education. And here, the policy has been drafted in such a way that the student would be getting the overall holistic and multidisciplinary education under the ambit of the national education policy, wherein the vocational education and all other features have been included. So let me go to the next slide, and we will discuss about each aspects of the national education policy. Now, see, there are certain changes which has been prescribed in the national education policy. The first is that the higher educational institutions would be transformed into the large multidisciplinary universities or colleges and higher education clusters or knowledge hubs of our country. See, we know the tradition of our country. Our ancient Bharat is popularly known for its enriched culture, intellectual debates, empirical studies, and thus became the epicenter of college long back, epicenter of knowledge long back, when we know our previous education systems. We know Takshila, we know Nalanda, and somewhere we lost that knowledge which was there with us, and we were following the footprints of other education which was being imparted in our education system. But this policy is trying to enrich ourselves with our own roots, is going to join us with our own roots. So ultimately, see, at that time, even in the Takshila or Nalanda, the student was given so much freedom that they can choose any kind of topics they want to study. There was no barrier of studying science, commerce, or arts. The students of science can study metal. The student of science can study economics. The student of arts can study metallurgy. Similarly, the medicine knowledge was also given to other candidates also. So holistic development was there. So this policy is linking all of us to the same roots of our education system. So that is why we are transforming into the large multidisciplinary universities or colleges and higher education institution clusters and knowledge hubs. This policy revolves around the center point or the focus point of this policy is the teacher. So it is going to rationalize the institutional architecture for the higher education. Apart from that, the emphasis has been given that there would be different kind of universities which would be there, research intensive universities, wherein the major focus would be on research activities of the students, the teaching intensive universities and autonomous degree granting colleges. So when we say teaching intensive universities, there would be a component of research, but the subject knowledge and the other theoretical knowledge would be of more weightage as compared to the research incentive universities. So now we know that our system is regulated by various regulators as of now. Somewhere we talk about AICTE, somewhere we talk about of NCTE, and the colleges are under the ambit of one university or the others, and they do not have the freedom to have their own syllabus and all these things. So this policy has given this mandate also that they would be phasing out the system of affiliated colleges over a period of 15 years through a system of graded autonomy. Autonomous colleges concept is already there. So they are going to extend either the colleges would be the constant colleges of the university, or the colleges, the affiliated colleges concept would not be there. They would be given as the autonomous colleges. Apart from that, the next mandate which is there is that broad-based multidisciplinary holistic education at the UG level. Holistic education, holistic words covers every aspect of those education, wherein a student would be at ease or the freedom to choose any subject they want to study. So that would be the holistic development that the student, if you remember, I remember that I was in a school, there was a period of SUPW, socially useful productive work, but we never gave so much emphasis to that subject. We used to play around even that period. But now we realize that we were taught in that school at that time clay modeling, photography, even some small knitting or some other activities are being taught. We are going to bring this activity also over here in education so that the students are trained for vocational education also at some stage or the other. Apart from that, the integrated education, there will be an integrated education to exposure to the science, arts, humanities, mathematics, and professional fields with flexible curricular structure, creative combination, integration of vocational education. So that was the another aspect of it. Apart from that, sorry, there was a call. Apart from that, the UG degree is being revamped now. So there will be either 3 years or 4 years duration with a multiple exit option would be available at the UG degree level. And if a student after completing 1 year of course would like to go out, the student would not be left in lurch that no certificate or would be given. Now, with this policy, the student would be empowered with a certificate after completing a 1 year of course in that discipline. If the student leaves the course after 2 years, the student would be given the diploma. And if the student completes the 3-year program, they would be given either honors or pass degree depending upon the nomenclature of the course. But 4-year course would be multidisciplinary course, leading to bachelor's degree, and this would be the most preferred option. Apart from that, the government is still planning that after doing a 4-year course, there could be a possibility that the students who would like to go for research, they can straight away go for research activities after the 4th year, or they can go in for PG course, which could be a 1-year duration. So that is why we say that this is our holistic policy where we are yet to plan many things so that all framework of the education is covered under this system. Then if you see, it is a very well thought of policy that if a student leaves the course after 1 year, he or she would be getting a certificate. After 2 years, they would be getting a degree, diploma. Now, if the student would like to come back and would like to pursue the course, so and government has created the academic bank of credit. wherein whatever credits the students have earned in the first year or second year, the credits would be stored in the bank, which the student can use for completion of their course. And the government at present has now planned that this credit facility would be available initially for a period of 7 years. So talks are still on this aspect. Why to keep it for 7 years? We can even expand the period, but we know that we have a limited resources available with us, during which we propose that the student should complete the degree not in 1 year, 2 year, 3 years time. They may complete it in maximum 7 years or 8 years time. So that is why it was planned that we would have the credit of these course for a maximum period of 7 years. Apart from that, the next is multidisciplinary education and research universities will be set up. As of now, we know that we have a law university, we have a medical university, we have an engineering university, we have an education university, we have a normal science university. So now, instead of having all those things, the national education policies, there will be only one word which says university. So that university is going to offer the multidisciplinary education and also going to provide. Then here in this national education policy, the autonomy is being given to the faculty as well as to the institution so that they can impart the education as in line with the interest of the students, number one. Number two, they can change their curriculum more easily in comparison that they are dependent upon the university. So ultimately, the policy is going to revolve around the faculty and the giving more autonomy to the institutions. Then revamping curriculum, pedagogical skills, assessment, and student support is also being revamped as per the national education policy requirement. Professional, academic, and career counseling activities would be the part of national education policy. The financial supports for students would be there in place, and for which the government proposed to establish national scholarship portal, which is already there. They are going to expand it so that everybody should get some kind of a scholarship and they would not be deprived of the education. Then reaffirming the integrity of the faculty and institutional leadership positions is there. Clearly defined, independent and transparent processes and criteria for faculty recruitment, tenure track promotions, and incentive excellence would also be there in the national education policy. The government is planned to establish National Research Foundation. See, when we are discussing these recommendations, I can share with you that the most of the recommendations the government has also started planning. The National Research Foundation, the government has already planned and allocated 50,000 crore rupees for National Research Foundation. Then the government has also planned that the governance of higher education institutions by independent boards having academic and administrative autonomy would be there. Apart from that, the ODL, the open and distance learning system, would be expanded. Rather, I would say it has already been expanded, that the most of the institutions are being allowed to offer online courses, and even digital repositories are being created. Funding for research is being strengthened through National Research Foundations. Improved student services would be there as part of national education policy. Apart from that, you have already seen a recent circular wherein the credit-based recognition of MOOCs has also been extended, and the UGC has given the flexibility to the universities and the institutions that they can use 40% of the course from MOOCs itself. When the students qualify the MOOC, they can be given the credited, and they would be given the relaxation from earning those credits again from the university or the institution. Apart from that, we are facing one major thing in our system, that many students would like to go abroad or for having education. So government has planned to open up this window, internationalization of education, where they are going to allow the entry of the foreign universities and students, and also going to allow the faculty mobility from our country to other, and other country to our country. So we can see that how planned this education policy is, that it is covering almost all the aspects of education system, which we have been discussing in the last 34 years, that we want these changes now. Next slide, please. Now, we have been talking about the regulatory framework of our education system, and we know that we are governed by several regulators as of now. So government want to give away with this kind of a mechanism also. The government wants a light but tight regulations by a single or overarching umbrella body for promotion of higher education. So they have already inculcated. So body is soon going to be in place wherein they are going to plan Higher Education Commission of India, the umbrella architecture body with 4 independent bodies. For one is for standard setting, the second will be for funding, the third would be for accreditation, and the fourth would be the regulatory council. Now, if you see, all these bodies as of now are working independently. Standard setting body, AICT is having its own standard setting body, NCT is having its own, UGC is having its own. So all these would be under one umbrella. Funding, AICT is providing funding, UGC is also providing funding, Rashtriya RUSA is also providing funding. So now the government plans to bring all these things under one umbrella. For accreditation, we know NAC is there, NBA is there, QCI is there, several other bodies are there. So they are also will be brought under one umbrella. So there will be single regulatory council to frame about the professional education. Now, standard setting, they would be named as the General Education Council and professional setting bodies. So now we know that there are already several bodies, Architecture Board, Board of Management Education, Pharmacy Council of India. So all these bodies would be part of the General Education Council when they would be constituting the standard setting, and all these things would be developed over there. Funding of higher education, we know, would be through the Higher Education Grant Council will be there. NAC, we have already discussed. Instead of now all these bodies, we will be having National Accreditation Council, under whose umbrella there would be a possibility that we would subsume NBA, NAC, and all other bodies with a different framework. Then for regulations, we will be having a separate regulation, National Higher Education Regulatory Council would be there, which would cover the entire ambit of the education except legal and medical education, which has specifically been left out of the National Education Policy. Apart from that, what are the parameters? When we say light but tight regulators, they want financial probity and public spiritedness, transparent self-disclosure, faceless intervention would be there through technology, powers to penalize higher education not conforming to norms and standards would be the part of this National Education Policy when the Higher Education Commission of India would be in place. Public and private higher education institutions governed by the same set of norms for regulation, accreditation, and academic standards. And as of now, we know that the standards are different for public and private higher education institutions. But the government has planned that when we are imparting education, the same set of norms for regulation, accreditation, and academic standards would be applicable for all the institutes of higher education. Professional education, integral part of the higher education system would be there. Standalone technical universities, health science universities, legal and agricultural universities aim to become multidisciplinary institutions. So that is one of the most important. Meru is there, multidisciplinary educational and research universities would be there instead of having them as a different, that we are only the technical university or we are only the education school for education, we are having a university or we are having a normal university. Now a student would not be having those barriers when they enter the universities. They would be at a freedom to choose the plethora of subject of their choice to gain education. Next, there will be a separate autonomous body, the National Education Technology Forum will be created. So that now they would be switching over the technology to a forum wherein everybody can get an access. See, now last year the corona came. And the corona has also taught us a big lesson that we can easily switch over to the technological platform by using various tools which are available. So now if you see that today we are separated through a large distance, but we are interacting, which either is using this tool only. So Government of India planned this also, that they are going to create a National Education Technology Forum wherein the repository would be available and all the institutions would be free to use this kind of a system. Integration of technology to improve classroom processes, support teacher professionals development, enhance educational access for disadvantaged groups, and streamline education planning, administration, and management would be the under the ambit of the National Education Technology Forum. Promote online and digital education, that has already been started. Apart from that, the government has also planned that Indian Institute of Translation and Interpretation to be established. Sanskrit and all Indian language institutes and departments across the country will be significantly strengthened. National Institute or institutes for Pali, Persian, and Prakrit will be set up in the institution framework, efforts to preserve and promote all Indian languages, including classical, tribal, and endangered languages, will be undertaken. Multiple mechanisms with checks and balances will combat and stop the commercialization of higher education. All educational institutions will be held to similar standards of audit and disclosures. One side we said that there will be same norms and standards would be applicable. Here we are saying that they will be audited with at the same platform. So already we have a central advisory board of education that needs to be strengthened, remodeled, and rejuvenated for developing, articulating, evaluating, and revising the vision of education. So apart from that, one of the major recommendation of the National Education Policy was that the Ministry of Human Resource Development should be renamed as Ministry of Education. And I wish to share that this has already been implemented by the Government of India way back in August or September 2020 itself, when they renamed the Ministry of Human Resource Development as the Ministry of Education. So now if you see that this is the brief overview of the National Education Policy, wherein all the aspects of the higher education system, whatever has been envisaged in the National Education Policy has been presented. So in a way, if we see that NEP has all the abilities to meet the essential needs and challenges of the time in the Indian education system, where giving reforms is not just a name, instead to work over the actual transformation of the education is the fundamental principle. So thus, as Marx has inspiration for those who strongly believe in the Marx-McLuhan agenda, said in Thesis of Your Work that philosophers have hitherto only interpreted the world in various ways. The point is to change it. Quite similarly, Prime Minister Modi has taken this catch the bull by its horn action and introduced the indigeneity in education that has closed many academic counters who were aimed to malign the actual nature of Indianness in the education system. The only challenge academic resistance would be its successful implementation across all states, and then its strengthens and make Indian even more self-reliant and helps in rewording its future with the academic by the historians of our own. Thank you so much. So this is a brief introduction about the National Education
Policy. For such a wonderful insight on implementation of National Education Policy for higher education. And I hope there is a lot to learn from here, that how the new education structure is going to take place for the education administrators. And, 1 year is, or a couple of years is a very less amount of time for which the entire mindset need to be prepared in that direction so that everybody can go in sync with the policy. So thank you very much for your time, valuable time. And sir, I hope the question answers will...
I just want to add one more thing.
Yeah.
Dr. Soam, I just want to add one more thing. See, when you said the 1 year or 2 years is quite less. Now, if you see the higher education policy in true sense, see, it came on paper only in 2020. But if you go a little back, when the UGC introduced choice-based credit system in 2014-15, so that was the first step towards the implementation of the National Education Policy. So ultimately, the credits and all these things was envisaged at that time only. So this is slowly being infused into the system. Only thing is that now it would be covered under the whole umbrella, how it would be given a complete platform and the implementation.
Dr. Anil is a PhD in environment with 3 master's degrees, and he's Master of Engineering from IIT Roorkee, MSc in Disaster Mitigation, and Master of Ecology and Environment. And he has 36 plus years of experience in technical education management at national level. So I would request Dr. Anil to start.
Director Bandana Sethi ji, Bhupender Som ji, Director of LBS, and more particularly Kanchan Kohli ji, who has been our senior colleague at AICT earlier, who has connected us. And I got this opportunity to share my viewpoints, whatever I have, with you. My friends, Mr. Vikas Gupta, who have the great experience working together at AICT, he has already covered almost every aspect of higher education in very brief. Still, I will be also touching the higher education. I will go little detail in that. Sir, just you see, the educational planning in the country in a very systematic format started in 1948, And Kasturi Ranjan Committee report came in India in 2019. So the journey started in 1948. Lot of other commissions came in between, especially mentioning the Kothari Commission of 1966, and particularly what Mr. Gupta talked about in a systematic format. There was a National Policy on Education in 1986 and the Program of Action of 1992. But after a gap of 34 years, for the first time, the country has seen a very systematic approach of educational planning, implementing the education to address every issue, not only of education, every issue of the country. There is issue of skill, issue of language, issue of migrating from one domain to another domain, and issue of making India integrated. It does not mean India is not integrated. India is integrated. But the policy has been framed in such a manner that right from day one, when a child starts the school education and complete the school education, he is having a feeling of Ek Bharat and Shrestha Bharat. And at the end of the day, when after 10-15 years, when national policy on education is implemented to the extent of even 50-60%, we can truly see India Atmanirbhar Bharat, Ek Bharat, Shrestha Bharat, Samarth Bharat, and Samriddh Bharat. So my kudos to this government led by Narendra Modi ji, who has taken a key role in bringing this diversified format of national education policy. Sir, this education policy has been addressing the issue right from the access to education, the issue of equity, issue of quality, issue of accountability, issue of governance, issue of transparency, and finally the sustainable development. The sustainable development goal of United Nations, this NEP has been framed in the same format that finally will be in a position to achieve that goal by 2030. The learning plan, the key features for school education, higher education, I will not go much into detail. I will directly come to some features about the gross enrollment ratio in higher education to be enhanced by 2035 to 50% level. Just imagine, it is a huge task. The present level in 2018 data I am having, the enrollment ratio is 26.3%. And if we want to make it to 50%, we have to add 3.5 crore new seats will be added to the higher education institutions. Mind it, how it is going to be possible? Adding 3.5 crores new seats, resulting into a requirement of around 3 lakhs crores of rupees alone. The present investment in education is around 2%. So the government is planning to enhance it to the level of 6%. And probably by reaching to the level of 6%, this target of achieving 50% of gross enrollment ratio can be achieved. I'll be especially focusing on the undergraduate programs. The undergraduate programs can be 3 year or 4 year. Now there can be a confusion. Why 3 year and 4 year? If you do not want to pursue higher education or go for research, you can close your undergraduate programs at third year level and exit and got a degree. But if you want to pursue higher education, you can have a 4-year program at UG level, so that the 4th year can be dedicated to research methodology and issue of research and the area on which you want to go for master's program. And again, masters for 3-year bachelor's, 2-year master's program, for a 4-year bachelor's, 1-year master's program. Again, there is a scope of 5-year integrated bachelor's and master's program, and the government has planned discontinuing the MPhil programs. Now, the common features the graded autonomy, my friend Mr. Vikas Gupta has already talked about, but still I'll be talking about the graded autonomy. Government has targeted of moving towards graded autonomy by 2030 of all higher education institutions. It is not an easy task, my friend. It is a gigantic task. Presently, let me talk about Uttar Pradesh. I am having a data of engineering education at graduate level. There are 1059 programs identified by Ministry of HRD through Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Technical University in degree engineering colleges who could have been made accredited during the last 3-year period. But in spite of our best efforts, a very beautiful mechanism created by AKTU of mentor-mentee relationship, asking the mentor institutions in private sector or public sector, becoming the mentee of the other institution and helping them to become accredited, we could achieve only 59 programs, sir. 5.9% only. So, I'm just talking of only engineering program, such a big task, and we are having only one accreditation body. Government is still thinking for last 3 years that institutions can be empowered to make the visits, to give the reports about accreditation. The format and mechanism is yet to be decided. Those institutions, those individuals will be accredited institutions. What will be the format? We are still unclear. Then phasing out the complete affiliation system in next 15 years time, National Mission on Mentoring, independent board of governors. So this is a big issue. Already Vikas Gupta has talked about the board of governors, and we are having a very beautiful experience in Uttar Pradesh. In this reform of BOG, we make it compulsory of all government institutions. Let the chairman of the BOG should not be a person who can be a minister or a secretary of technical education. There is a clash of interest, so this should not be. So it took almost a year to convince the government, and finally the board of governors is being headed by eminent technocrat and eminent educationist, and we have started getting results. 50% programs of these government institutions, through introducing a good governance practices, could be made accredited. 50% programs. It is a good practice, has been followed through the TechCoop intervention, and I believe after closure of TechCoop in September, these good practices will continue by the institutions. Single set of regulator, I'll be discussing in detail later on. Common norms for all private and public higher education institutions. Public investment in education sector reaching to 6%. Now, after all those features, what are the areas and issues this national education policy will be truly addressing? Number one, Mr. Gupta has talked about multidisciplinary research and education and research intensive universities at par with IITs, MIMs, to be set up as model of best multidisciplinary educational global standards in the country. A National Research Foundation, NRF, as an apex body to addressing all the issue of research in a systematic manner and addressing the issue of the funding in all the disciplines, establishing National Higher Education Qualification Framework, NHEQF, and integrating it with National Skill Qualification Framework. Once higher education qualification framework and a skill education qualification frameworks are integrated, already UGC and AICTE has given their notification how National Skill Qualification Framework can be realigned with the higher education qualification. But as because there is no clarity to the people, and there is no clarity to the employer, that is why there is less demand, and skill education is still not becoming popular. But this NEP is trying to address this skill qualification framework in a bigger way, because the skill level of the country in engineering education, as per the recent survey, is hardly 20 to 24%, whereas South Korea skill level is around 97%. Japan skill level is around 85 to 87%. So Government of India is also emphasizing that a skill level of technical education can go to the level of 60, 70, and general education, whose skill level today is hardly 8 to 10%, meaning thereby 8% of the students passing out from general STEM in the higher education system are only employable. Others are not at all employable. This is a very poor state of affairs. But this education policy is addressing this issue in a very bigger and challenging way. And that is why they are talking about integrating both higher education qualification framework and national skill qualification framework. Restructuring regulatory and various apex bodies of higher education. Academic bank of credit. Already our friend Mr. Gupta has talked about that UGC in a silent manner already before this NEP 2020 came into existence, they have choice-based credit system implemented. I'll be discussing this part much in detail. That this, unless academic bank of credits is digitized and stored and not being acceptable in the country, and a common set of standards are being created, probably even if you are having the credit from one corner of the country may not be accepted at the another corner. It is a very big task and challenging task. And again, this credit had to be transferred laterally from vocational educational qualification framework to higher education qualification framework, or from higher education qualification framework to the vocational education qualification framework. So all those issues, academic credit bank, national skill qualification framework, higher education qualification framework, common set of standards of higher education qualification framework, and modular basis of skill education, so that each module can be added together and converted into the credits, and finally those credits can be earned and finally made equivalent to certain level. Level 1, first year of graduation, second year of graduation, third year of graduation. So presently, as per Government of India notification of NSQF, level 7 is being considered as part with the graduation in engineering. But it is not accepted in the market today. There is no clarity about the standards, curriculum of level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Guidelines are there. UGC is also addressing those issues. But the whole, everything, AICT, UGC, NSQF, and academic bank of credits in digitization form had to be addressed holistically and integrated manner. Then integrating ICT, information and communication technology, with education, digital learning in a very big way, virtual learning and virtual universities. Now virtual learning, already a number of institutions, BITS Pilani running very successfully a number of master's program, MS program, and MTech program in purely virtual mode. However, they have integrated with the work in technical education, work integrated virtual learning programs, and it is a very successful program, easily acceptable in the market. Then accreditation, autonomy, and excellence. We are having an example of one institution in the country, Institute of Chemical Technology under Bombay University, and a simple department of Institute of Chemical Technology started its journey from making the programs accredited, then going for autonomy in 2007, around 10 or 11 deemed university, and by today, they are one of the best institutions in the country at par with the IITs. And still, mind it, Professor Jadwa, who has been awarded Padma Shri for such great contribution towards making Institute of Chemical Technology as an excellent institution in the country. In one of the talk, he shared with us that somebody asked whether Institute of Chemical Technology is the Institute of Excellence? Mr. Yadwa told, no, sir. As per law, it is not Institute of Excellence. Government of India has not notified. But it is better than Institute of Excellence. And I am proud to share with you, this is the only institution still under the state government where IIT Kharagpur requested them to start a joint MTech program from Bhubaneswar campus of IIT in the field of chemical technology. And so far research is concerned, Institute of Chemical Technology is far ahead than any of the IITs. Now, let me address, I will be addressing National Research Foundation in detail, because globally, Indian contribution in research, in education is minimal. And in India, there is a philosophy, there is a psychology among the people that research is the only last options when no good opportunities are available. So just imagine, when quality manpower is not going to research, we can find out the outcome of the research. The contribution of research of Israel is much above than us. And Government of India is also focusing to enhance the contribution of research to the level of 6%. That is why they have created a National Research Foundation. Seed money, already Gupta ji has told that 50 crore has been allocated. A National Research Foundation will provide a reliable base of merit-based but equitable peer-reviewed research funding, helping to develop a culture of research in the country through suitable mechanism and through well-established and structured process. The National Research Foundation will have close linkages with industries and private and philanthropic organizations. It will be governed independently of the government by a rotating board of governors consisting of the best researchers and innovators across the field. It has a reasonable structure and overall governing board. Divisional boards of 4 divisions. So entire National Research Foundations will have 4 divisions: science, engineering, social science, and humanities. And each division will be addressing their own domain. Each division will be headed by, again, an eminent academician. Government will have no interference. Initial structure will be created by the government, and then after, National Research Foundation will look after their all affairs. NRF would fund individual projects. They will do the capacity building initiatives, especially in universities, as well as transformative mega projects. They will seed, grow, and facilitate research at academic institutions, particularly at universities and colleges, where research infrastructure is minimal or at nascent stage. It will act as a liaison between researchers and a relevant branch of industries, the government, so that research scholars are constantly made aware of the most urgent national research need, research breakthroughs, so as to allow the breakthroughs to be brought into policy easily and implemented with an active correlation with the government and the industry. Again, outstanding research to be recognized and progress to be ensured. So, such is a scenario. Government of India is also seriously thinking that the CRS, the projects, government of the public sector, private sector have to give 2% of their profit to the CRS projects. Whether a part of the CRS projects can be transferred to this National Research Foundations. If that can be done, there will be a huge fund in the country. So again, for that, Act of Parliament can address the issue. Already, my friend Vikas Gupta ji had talked about, but still I'll be talking about the governance issue. The entire issue of governance of higher education will be under a single umbrella, and that will be called Higher Education Commission of India. And this will be broadly divided into 4 verticals. Each vertical will be addressing each of the issues. I will not be going to detail, and this will be my last slide. First vertical will be National Higher Education Regulatory Council. This will exclude medical and legal education. So, for medical and legal education, a separate mechanism will be created, thus eliminating the duplication and disjunction of regulatory efforts by multiple regulatory agencies. Presently, UGC, AICT, Pharmacy Council, Dental Council, Veterinary Council, a number of councils are there. National Accreditation Council, again. Accreditation of the institutions will be based on the norms, public self-disclosure, good governance and outcomes. And there will be a National Accreditation Council. We have to yet to see what will be the governance mechanism of this vertical. We are having 2 accreditation national bodies in the country. One is the program-based accreditation in line with the Washington Accord by National Board of Accreditation, having a separate structure run by a society under Society Registration Act as per requirement of the Washington Accord, and another NAAC, NAAC accrediting the whole of the institutions or university and giving ranking as a star. So we have to see what will be the governing structure. The government is yet to come out with the idea. The third vertical will be Higher Education Grant Council. Will carry out funding and financing based on transparent criteria, including the institutional development plans prepared by institutions for their implementation. Every higher education institution will be asked to prepare a short-term IDP and long-term IDP, and based on that, the funding will be given. So this will be solely addressing the funding and financing and no other academic issues. They will not be addressing the issue of academic. They will not be addressing the issue of standards, issue of curriculum design, etc., etc. And the fourth will be General Education Council. They will frame expected learning outcomes, educational programs, also referred to as graduate attributes. So they will be creating within General Education Council National Higher Education Qualification Framework. I have already talked in detail, and already this NEP 2020, especially mentioning this line, it shall be, I'm just quoting their line, it shall be in synchronization with National Skill Qualification Framework to ease the integration of vocational education into higher education, so that easily the horizontal movement from one vertical to another vertical of a skill qualification framework can start. So friends, with these few words, I have a lot to share, but I was focusing only on the issue of governance and structure. And I do believe that the way this government is creating awareness right from the primary school level to the higher education institutions, each and every institution for the first time, we see on voluntary basis, they are creating an awareness among the students, among the teachers, among the regulators, among the policy planners, among the mentors, among the industries. We in TechUp3, as a part of Government of India institutions, we are asked by Government of India that create such programs in a massive level among all technical institutions, and we have created a week of 7 days. Within 7 days, more than 200 such programs were conducted in whole of the Uttar Pradesh. So with these few words, I must express to the organizer once again, more particularly Bandana Sethi and Bhupender Somji, who have given me the chance to share with you the idea of what I am having. When there will be a session on a discussion and the question answer, I will be there to address your issue. And with these few words, I'll express my thanks to this great nation and this government led by Honorable Narendra Modi ji, who has taken a great visionary step to make India Atmanirbhar, Samarth, Shrestha, Samrid, and finally Bisguru by 2030. And allow me to share out of the track. When we talk about, it is not written anywhere, it came to my mind. In everywhere in national education policy, everywhere government is talking by 2030. Sustainable development goal on education, they are also talking about 2030. NEP also talking about will achieving SDP 2020, SDP 4.0 by 2030. And International Solar Alliance on Solar Energy giving a target to Government of India to contribute 27% voluntary contribution by 2030. This government, when National Solar Mission started in the country in 2009 by Honorable Prime Minister Manmohan Singh ji, 20 gigawatt was set the target by 2018-19. When this government came in 2014, by 2015, they told no, not 20 gigawatt. We'll make it 107 gigawatt. People started laughing. Industrial people told it is impossible. But I feel proud this nation has achieved that target of 124 gigawatt by 2019, and target of achieving contributing 27% of solar energy contribution to the whole Indian energy contribution. Government of India has fixed up 54%. Probably that 3 lakhs crore of rupees saving on import of coal of energy can be transferred to the education, to health, to homes, and to all other sectors, so that India can become Samarth, Shrestha, and Bisguru. Thank you very much.
Holding the position of advisor at JIMS Rohini and a former director to JIMS Rohini. He has been into education from his beginning of his career. He started his career as a lecturer in Delhi University. And, he is, I would say, a prominent personality in economics. Whenever I talk to him, we just, and he, as far as my understanding of Dr. Goyal goes, he is a really critical analyzer of the things. So it will be really interesting to hear you, Dr. Goyal, and I'd invite you again. He has a lot of achievements under his belt. When I
came to India, he says there are no more lands to be conquered. Alas, I feel something like that. My honorable predecessors have spoken so much that I'm wondering what more can I add. The analysis that my predecessors presented was more of what I call normative in nature. A normative analysis talks about what is the ideal. Yes, it is ideal. Van Bhatt के शब्दों में student जो it is, and that's what this NEP says. 64 कला संपूर्ण हम जो है वो स्टूडेंट बनाएंगे. That is all. Now, well, easy, good. The concerns are, let me tell you what is the situation till now and what we plan to do, because the title is Implementation of NEP 2020. Let us take it as a fait accompli that it has been adopted. Let us not question it anymore. Fine. The previous policy had its problems. It was linked to job creation. That thing did not happen, because we found AICT's own findings are there that 75% of the MBAs produced by AICT approved institutions are not employable. The previous policy, another problem was that most of the growth was in what we call so-called technical education. Everybody, every parent wanted to send his son or daughter to either engineering or management or some technical course. Who will look after liberal arts? Who will study them? That was the problem, that liberal arts, nobody was taking it up. The current situation is, as Dr. Anil Kumar just started it, and I would put it this way, that at the moment, there are 40,000 universities, colleges, and 10,000 standalone institutions, and 1,000 universities in all at the moment. And total enrollment is 3.75 crore, as he rightly said. Well, that way it works out to be, on an average, 750 students per institution. Now, we want to make, by another 15 years, we want to take GER, gross enrollment ratio, to 50%, almost double it, isn't it? For that, he has rightly, I didn't know the financial figures, but the figures that they are putting up in terms of colleges, multidisciplinary colleges, with a strength of, say, 2 to 5,000 students, or 3 to 5,000 students, and about 5,000 numbers that Kasturi Rangan is put is, there will be 3 types of HEIs. There will be mainly research universities, 150 to 300. Second, TUs, teaching universities, which is 1,000 to 2,000, right? And ACs, autonomous colleges, which is 5,000 to 10,000. My problem is, first thing, this will create the distinction between mainly research universities and teaching universities, will create some kind of lemons and peaches. Research universities is like we are trying to promote the Manuvad, that research universities being granted status of institutions of eminence, every parent will like to send their children to RUs. Only as a last resort, people will come to TUs. I don't know what will be the mindset of the recruiters when a student from a teaching university applies, and when the same student from a RU applies. Though the policy says that the TUs have a chance to convert them into RUs, research universities. But once branded teaching university, it will be very difficult to do that. My first concern. Second concern is that Dr. Anil Kumar said that this government proposes to raise expenditure on education to 6% of GDP. I would like to remind my honorable panelists that ever since independence, governments of all color, or particularly after Kothari Commission, everyone has been promising that we will increase the budget on education to 6%. No government of any color has crossed 4% at the most, if I'm correct. Mainly perhaps Dr. Manmohan Singh's time, that too only 1 or 2 years. 11th 5-year plan, I can remember. Otherwise, the budget has been, allocation has been 3 to 5%. And in this case, in the last 2-3 years, it is even worse, 2.6%. And out of that, please remember, audience, out of this, almost 1.5% or more than that, out of this 3%, 2.5% or 2.2% goes to school education. So higher education mainly gets about 0.7%, nothing else. Well, then you are saying gross enrollment ratio, which is now 26. Remember, I would like to remind you that about 15 years ago, this gross enrollment ratio was about 13. How did it increase to 26? Because in the last 25 years, main emphasis, main growth in higher education has been that of private sector, self-financing, privately managed sector. I don't remember Delhi University having opened a new college after 1973. That is the kind of situation. Maybe a couple of colleges Delhi government has opened with 100% funding. So government sector, has it done it in the past, the kind of investment that we are talking about? You have to rely on private sector, about which the policy is fairly silent. That is not telling us what it plans to do about private sector in this, except that we will seek private public participation and a repeated utilization of the term commercialization of education. That is something which is hurting. That why commercialization? What do you mean by commercialization? If you cannot do it yourself, if the private sector is coming up, what is the harm? And private sector does not come for charity. Let us be very clear about the philanthropic contribution of philanthropic societies in education has been very, very dismal in India. I have no hesitation in saying so, that nobody is contributing. Alumni do not contribute. The prominent alumni in India contribute their universities in foreign countries. They contribute to that, but not to Indian universities. So it doesn't come. Self-financing private sector. Once you say education is a holy thing and I will not make it profit-taking, then what happens? Recently, Delhi University, you have invited top 100 foreign universities to come to India and set up their institutions here, branches here. None of them has till now responded. Why? Because they say in India, if it cannot be corporatized, then why should we come? That is my concern. We will have to face it. We can't get away saying that, no, this is just not allowed, commercialization. Now, second thing that is coming to my mind is that it says by 2035 or 2032, all colleges will be made autonomous. Now, once you make a college autonomous, here's a discrepancy here. Those who want to become autonomous, the government does not want to lift regulation on that. There are two parallel the state funded system, government, okay. And the private. What happens is autonomy, whom you do not want to give, you want to. Public sector does not. University who are saying that, or if we apply, we will make such a pathetic situation that the regulators do not give us aid, because at the moment the rule is that only those institutions, those colleges will be made autonomous, which get A or A plus or A double plus. वो कहते हैं जी हम क्या को लें? Because the fear in Delhi University teachers, and I'm sharing it that I taught in Delhi University for about 25 years, took a VRS, then 15 years I have been with the private sector. So I've seen both sides. Well, they say autonomy will follow resource generation. The fear of the government funded institutions is that the moment we are made autonomous, the UGC or whatever form avatar it comes, HECI or whatever, they will simply say, apna kamao, apna khao. They don't want that. For the last 40 years, they have been sufficiently having 7th pay commission very nicely, 2 lakh plus salaries, absolutely fine, less than 2 hours of job per day, 3 months of vacation, fine. Why should they do that? The autonomous part, private sector. Now, if the private sector seeks autonomy, the affiliating universities will not give it. चौधराहट किस पे चलाएंगे वो? Imagine a university without affiliated colleges. हम हाथ जोड़ के जाते हैं आईपी यूनिवर्सिटी के पास, हुजूर माई बाप ये कोर्स दे दो, ये कर दो, हैं? I call a university without affiliated colleges a peacock without feathers. Imagine a peacock जिसके पास वो अपने कैंपस में बैठ के क्या करे. My friends in FU and cry saying that we don't, your union should say that. That fine. So this is what the situation is. Then my third concern is you are saying that you have made a student 64 Kala Sampurn. So if a student, if I am a recruiter in a FMCG sector and I get an application from a student in which I find in his mark sheet that he has earned 20 credits from marketing, 5 credits from Bharatanatyam dance, 3 credits from some course in computer science, 15 credits from Indian archaeology. What will I do with him? Imagine your condition as a recruiter. On what basis, on what parameters would you recruit him? If this 64 Kala Sampurn student comes to you, as this policy envisages, this is another concern. You see, after Rahim ji बोल गए हैं, एक ही साधे सब सधे, सब साधे सब जाए. तुलसी जी बोल गए, तुलसी सींचे मूल को फूले फले अघाय. कोर कॉम्पिटेंस तो होनी ही चाहिए हायर एजुकेशन में. द स्कूल एजुकेशन हैज डन ऑलरेडी दैट. आपको डिफरेंट डिसिप्लिन स्कूल में इसलिए पढ़ाए जाते हैं कि वहां पे आप सभी चीजों से योर कैनवस बिकम्स वेरी वास्ट. कॉलेज एजुकेशन इज ए टारगेटेड थिंग. You go into something. You can't be a good engineer and a good lawyer and a good Bharatanatyam dancer. Skills, after all, you see, modern day skills are so, I mean, it is really, I'm amazed that AICT is saying that the students can join engineering course without having a mathematics or physics, chemistry background in 12th. Fair enough. Some disciplines they may be, but by and large, I think the implementation should be done after a very, very careful thought, not so early. That is what my concern is. Per se, I'm not against this, but the point is we should not be hurrying up with the whole thing like that. Now, let us come back to governance part. I'll come in the last part. Sorry, my dog is, this is, in the last part, I'll pick up what has been done so far. Second thing I'll talk about the governance part. In the governance part, you say single Higher Education Commission of India with 4 branches. 1 regulator. Regulator department will be different. Funding department will be different. Mark my words. These are the regulator will be different, funding will be different from a different department. Now, it is a situation like this. I'm saying frankly, and let me make it clear. These are my personal views. These are neither the views of my institution to which I belong, nor are these the views of my host, Dr. Dr. Som. These are not the institutional views of either party. These are my personal views. Fine. Let's come back to that. Now, what I was saying was regulator and funding different. Imagine a situation. I'm in the private sector. Everybody knows how private sector works. Now, I'm the director of the institution. As a director, it is my duty to regulate my staff. As a regulator, फैकल्टी मेंबर, तो उसकी रेगुलेटर मैं हूं. फंड करता है मेरा चेयरमैन. सैलरी जाती है मेरे चेयरमैन की साइन से, मेरे साइन से तो नहीं जाती. Who will he listen to? My faculty member. Will he listen to, he or she listen to the director or the chairman? In case both of them are in tune with it, no problem. But my concern is, if they are not in tune, if they are different, then who will arbitrate? My fear is the as they say, one who pays the piper calls the tune. Simple. Chairman की सुनेगा, मेरी क्या सुनेगा? This should be done very carefully, if at all that is being thought of, which we are thinking about. Well, then while I'm talking about what has been, I'll take just 10 minutes more because I want this to be 15 is the time.
Yes.
Isn't it? Yeah, I'll take less than that because, as I said, my predecessors have done a wonderful job. So there's no problem for me. Well, my third concern, at the moment, there are 10,000 standalone single discipline institutions. And some of the colleges in state funded education systems are very small. आप कह रहे हो कि by 2035 सभी को आप मल्टी डिसिप्लिनरी बना दोगे. कैसे बना दोगे भाई? What about those institutions which have less than 1,000 students, which have been set up in cities? Imagine in Bombay, some of the institutions I don't want to name. How will you make them multidisciplinary? Where will the land come from? Where will they expand? AICT बड़े एक अजीब सी स्कीम से आई है इस बार. AICT कह रही है कि any institution which has multiple any society which has multiple institutions in the same city, चाहे 20 किलोमीटर दूर हो, चाहे 15 किलोमीटर दूर हो, NCR रीजन में है, तो आप उसको एक इंस्टीट्यूशन बना सकते हैं. That is what they have come out with. Now, I don't find it feasible, even if the society is the same. Let me give you an idea of, recently DDA has announced the auction of institutional plots after 15 years. 2006 के बाद अब auction allow किया. 76 sites they will be auctioning. Some of you may not be knowing it. Well, you know what is the reserve price that they have kept? 25 crore rupees per acre. 25 crore rupees per acre. AICT requirement, you can work it out. अगर मैं एक 300 के इंटेक का इंस्टीट्यूशन बनाता हूँ, 600 स्टूडेंट्स का इंटेक बनाता हूँ, तो कितनी लैंड चाहिए उनको? और अब 5000 स्टूडेंट्स का इंस्टीट्यूशन में बनाऊंगा, तो कितनी लैंड चाहिएगी? कहाँ से लाएंगे आप? So it is easier said than done. The existing institutions will be there with single disciplines. So I think somebody should give it a thought rather than simply saying that हम जो है ना 15 साल में 12-13 साल में सभी small और छोटे institutions को multidiscipline बना दें. Fine. These are some of the concerns. Now let me tell you, as this says, what has been the implementation till now. My honorable colleagues must be knowing better than me because they are into the system. I am outside it. तो मेरे पास तो जितने ड्राफ्ट, जितने प्रपोजल्स, जितने वो आते हैं, उसी की इंफॉर्मेशन है. Based on that, I am telling you, my dear listeners, that what has been done till now. Till now, there has been a proposal to set up an academic bank of credit, ABC. ABC जो स्कीम अभी आई है, उसमें पहले तो ये कहा गया कि only A grade, NAC accredited A grade institutions and above will be able to participate in it. And we all know that these institutions are only a handful. मतलब 4 point scale में 3 से ज्यादा जिसके नंबर हैं, वो ही पार्टिसिपेट कर पाएंगे एकेडमिक बैंक ऑफ क्रेडिट में। तो पहले ए ग्रेड लाओ, फिर एबीसी में आओ। सेकेंड थिंग, द क्रेडिट्स विल रिमेन ऑपरेशनल और वैलिड फॉर 7 years। सुनने में बड़ी अच्छी लगती है चीज। मैंने आज जो है से मेडिकल में हूं, मैंने फर्स्ट ईयर सेकेंड ईयर मेडिकल किया। whatever credits I earned, due to some problems I could not continue, I discontinue, and that institution, that university puts my credit in this bank. After 4 years I go there and encash it. Imagine 4 साल बाद आपको जो 4 साल पहले पढ़ा हुआ है पिछले 2 साल का, वो कितना याद रहेगा, और उससे आगे आप थर्ड ईयर में शुरू हो जाएंगे। I find this to be less palatable, that kind of 7 years of time gap. Another dangerous thing in this proposal is that 20% the institutions will be allowed. ये कहते हैं ना कि क्रेडिट्स आप दूसरे इंस्टीट्यूशन में ले जाके अर्न कर सकते हो, यहाँ से डिसकंटिन्यू करो, दूसरे इंस्टीट्यूशन में चले जाओ, कुछ और पढ़ना चाहते हो, सेम भी पढ़ना चाहते हो। एंड any institution has been allowed 20% lateral entry. Now, what will happen if a student who earlier on account of merit could not get admission in a top class institution and opted for, say, a B grade institution, so to say, after 1 year, he will sneak through lateral entry, and this will come at a price. My fear is some kind of capitation fee or some backdoor entry का ये रास्ता खुलेगा। दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी ने भी अभी ट्राई किया था कि 5 स्टूडेंट्स को कॉलेज प्रिंसिपल एडमिशन दे सकता है। On what basis? Nobody knows. So this discretion will give third concern in this scheme. You see, it does not make any difference if a student from, say, Hindu college migrates to Hansraj College. I'm talking about DU colleges. Both are funded by 95% funded by Delhi UGC. So what will happen in this case if the Hindu college principal doesn't mind? जा रहा है जाने दो. Hansraj College principal does not mind, जा रहा है जाने दो. Bring this situation to private sector. मुझे AICTE ने कहा 180 से ज्यादा स्टूडेंट आप एडमिट नहीं कर सकते. मैंने 180 स्टूडेंट एडमिट करे PGDM प्रोग्राम में. नेक्स्ट ईयर 20 स्टूडेंट मेरे कहते हैं जी हम तो वहां जा रहे हैं बाहर दूसरी उसमें, हमें वहां मिल रहा है. दैट इंस्टीट्यूशन विल हैव नो प्रॉब्लम्स ऑफ कोर्स, चाहे 1 साल की फीस मिले. Why will I allow him to go? Because it is a loss of 1 year's fees for me. I don't know whether anybody has given any thought to these situations or not. Then this is about ABC scheme till now. जो propose है जिसमें मैं कह रहा हूँ ये finally हुई है. This is only draft where they are seeking opinions, and I sent these opinions to them incidentally. Right? Then there is a proposal to merge, as friends all of you must be knowing, NBA program specific accreditation देता है, NAC institutional specific accreditation देता है. There is a proposal to merge both, that is to make it NAC, National Accreditation Council. That is what the proposal is. So now what this is another dangerous trend it is proposing. जो proposal में आया है, they found that accreditation has to be done quickly done. 2032 तक सबको करना है, अकेली एजेंसी कर नहीं सकती. तो क्या कह रहा है ये proposal कि we will delegate the power of accreditation to some premier institutions. They will accredit others. They will go to, मतलब जो और मेरा जो सुपीरियर है, मेरे से ज्यादा जो पीचीज है, मैं अगर लेमन हूं तो उसको डेलीगेट कर देंगे भाई जाते क्या एक्रेडिटेशन के लायक है कि नहीं. वो मेरे को क्यों एक्रेडिटेशन देगा? मेरा राइवल इंस्टीट्यूशन है वो. Yeah? It is like, I compare it like making the team player of your rival team referee in the tournament. Rival team के prepare उसको ही आप referee बना दो. This is not acceptable, what they are saying. But since the volume is so large, they have no idea what to do. So this is what they have come out with. Then, again, I've already told you that research funded, जो colleges अगर जो ना A grade नहीं लाते accreditation में, उनका क्या करेंगे? What will you do with that? Public, particularly in the public funded education system I'm talking about, right? So this is about the this thing. And finally, I think recently I found that एक और proposal आया है कि universal human values, they will be encouraged. Fine, very nice, universal human values. Now, AICT has come out with a draft of universal human values. क्या है, क्या course component होना चाहिए, क्या उसका जो है ना वो होनी चाहिए, which is, I believe, a hurriedly prepared and ill prepared draft. मतलब एक तो ये कह रहा यूनिवर्सल ह्यूमन वैल्यूज हिंदुइज्म में अलग हैं एज इफ, और आगे के पोर्शंस में लास्ट 3-4 पेजेस आर वेरी फनी. यूनिवर्सल ह्यूमन वैल्यूज इन सिखिज्म, नीचे लिखा हुआ है अंडर प्रिपरेशन. यूनिवर्सल ह्यूमन वैल्यूज इन इस्लाम, अंडर प्रिपरेशन. भाई धर्मों में तो मुझे जो सिखाया गया जितना धर्म, क्या किसी धर्म की यूनिवर्सल ह्यूमन वैल्यूज अलग अलग हैं? They are the same everywhere. So it is a hurriedly drafted thing. Something we should make sure that we should carefully sit. I'm glad I'm told that Delhi University has set up a task force and to consider in detail the NEP 2020, and that is how we should proceed rather than hurrying up things with all this kind of one-upmanship. Everyone is trying to show how fast and how efficient he or she, that institution, is to follow NEP 2020. Mine is a word of caution. We must sit down and talk detailed. Remember, higher education is a concurrent subject. Concurrent subject means in which higher education, that central government and state government should deliberate in detail. मुझे नहीं पता कितनी deliberation हुई है already, कितनी concurrent.
The first question is multiple entry and exit scheme mapped on employment requirements of government and private sector? That is the first question which has come up from one participant. I don't understand the name. Any of the panelists may choose to answer.
Right, sir. Right, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, already I talked about, and not in detail, but I have given a hint to that every skill program which are to be converted into the credit-based program have to be properly designed and mapped with the national curriculum. That is why this policy has talked about creation of the National Higher Education Qualification Framework and integrating this framework with National Skill Qualification Framework. The National Skill Qualification Framework, which exists as in the present format, is also required to be realigned. So, very unfortunately, as of date, there is not a single platform whether the people who are addressing the two different domain area from their own ministries or own departments have to sit together and create a mechanism, a common platform where each and every program, already if somebody will go through the National Skill Qualification Framework, any program can be conducted by industry also. And if that industry programs, the question is very correct and appropriate. If that is mapped with the level of the program, so they have converted entire skill level programs, level L0, L1, L2, L3, L4, L5, L7. So these are the structures. But again, which program can be considered as level 1 program? That is a multi-million question. Who will conduct the exam and whose certification will be considered as a valid certification so that that credit can be deposited in the academic credit bank? So these all are the very big issues and need to be discussed holistically and in an integrated manner. Industry, academic, MSDB, Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, and Higher Education, Ministry of Higher Education, all have to sit together and they have to evolve one mechanism.
Yes sir, because students के दिमाग में यही confusion सर रहेगा. Let us suppose मैंने graduation का 1 year करके exit ले लिया. So what kind of
नहीं, सर जब तक दोनों स्किल फ्रेमवर्क को ठीक से डिजाइन नहीं किया जाएगा और जब तक मार्केट इंडस्ट्री एज वेल एज एकेडमिक्स बोथ हैव टू एक्सेप्ट दैट, अदरवाइज देयर विल बी नो से. विभोग प्रोग्राम एआईसीटी ने शुरू किया, यूजीसी ने शुरू किया, देयर इज नो टेकर, टू बी वेरी फ्रैंक.
Absolutely.
So some of the universities like Symbiosis Institute of Applied Sciences, they started a university in Indore. So they are not conducting Viva program. They are 100% skill-based programs they are conducting, but their nomenclature is BTech. So what is, as an individual, as Anil Kumar, and this is my personal view, what is harm in that? If it is a skill-based program as part with the engineering program, why you are calling it as a Vivoc and B or BTech program?
Yes sir.
So nomenclature also matters.
Okay. Sir, then
Yeah, I would just like to add one more, if you allow.
Yes,
So,
sure sir.
yeah. You see, in this, the problem till now, what ABC says is, क्योंकि ये problem भी हुई, that if you have done 40% of the credits in, say, institution A, in a certain discipline, मतलब क्या degree मिलेगी उसको? Whether he will get a MBA degree, मतलब 15-20 क्रेडिट 50 मतलब 100 में से मान लो 40% आपने मैनेजमेंट का कोर्स किया, दैट यू हैव डन. 10% इंजीनियरिंग फ्रॉम समवेयर एल्स. हु विल अवार्ड डिग्री? दिस वाज द क्वेश्चन. एंड इन व्हाट डिसिप्लिन? द आंसर एबीसी गिव्स इज दैट जो होस्ट इंस्टीट्यूशन है जहां सबसे ज्यादा उसके क्रेडिट हैं, उसको उस जगह की डिग्री मिल जाएगी. फिर दूसरी प्रॉब्लम है डॉक्टर सोम, व्हाट इफ आई हैव अर्नड 100 credits from 5 different institutions equally, 20 each, and in different disciplines ranging from physics to साइंस तक जितना करेक्ट है कि उसको वोकेशनल हो गया, कोई डिसिप्लिन तो मेंशन कर नहीं सकते वहां.
Yes. And sir, the third question, so I'll just take 2 more questions. One question is about like in this education policy, the vocational courses have been shifted in a school education now. That means the students from 9th to 11th, 12th will be taking up the vocational courses, 9th to 12th or less than that. So will it be completely shifted? So this question is to Dr. Anil. Will this be completely shifted from university to a school level, the vocational courses?
No, it is not like that. School level vocational courses will be addressing the curriculum and the level which is appropriate to the school. Suppose in a particular carpentership, blacksmithy, or in a particular computer repairing jobs, so they will be appropriate. Even National Open School and CBSE is also vocationalizing their curriculum, and they have to the qualification framework. How much a skill educational program in a particular vocation can be considered a part of the class 10 program or 11 program, so that that credit can be considered to award him the certificate of class 10 pass. So both will be addressing separately. Management education, they will be addressing all those vocational programs being addressed in the area of management. School education addressing school level vocational programs.
Okay. So the last question of the day, which Professor Kapoor has asked, Does the framework competence to enhance the corporate involvement activity to align NEP objectives, thus make it meet the corporate expectations in terms of employability of young budding professionals? That is the question. Any of the panelists can answer. Dr.
I'm
Goel?
answering. My
Yeah.
other colleagues can also respond to that. My answer will be unless corporate involvement is not there, it is not going to be acceptable in the market. So the proposal of NEP of integrating national skill qualification framework and higher education qualification framework, their corporate body has to play a major role. How will be the mechanism and how government of Indian policy will integrate them into the finalization of the policy framework? It is up to them to decide. But unless corporate body is not going to accept that, and they have also to accept that the modular programs and the level of programs, even the corporate bodies are running some programs. If they are running some of those programs, they can be encouraged to run those programs in line with the modular program being designed by National Skill Qualification Framework, so that that can be considered as a part of the credit to be transferred to another program where they can be awarded a certificate or a degree.
That they are the beneficiaries of the higher education system without paying for it. Quid pro, there's no quid pro quo in it. They pick up the cherries which were funded by the government in IITs and IIMs without paying for it. There is at the moment no concrete plan in NEP, at least. Maybe later on they make it. Suggestions हैं, invitations हैं that okay, आप अपने जो CSR का खर्चा है वो higher education में लगा सकते हो जो mandatory है. That is all, nothing beyond that. But if you look at the Indian corporate sector, apart from a few institutions that they have set up on their own, and you can count them on fingertips of a single hand, not even both the hands.
Yes.
So, और कुछ इंडियन कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर ने पिछले 60 साल में किया हो मुझे याद नहीं आ रहा कम से कम. तो ये जो है ना एक विडंबना है, दुर्भाग्य है. And who will bell the cat?
Limited. In their bylaws, they have clearly mentioned 65% of the profit coming to Tata Sons Limited will go to charity. So they have shown the example in the country, and unless the corporate, I fully agree with Goel sir, unless corporate body is not coming forward to become part of the higher education, probably it will be difficult by the government alone to arrange funds for that. One way of arranging fund, part of the CSR can be diverted to that, or even if required, 1% more to the profit to the corporate additionally in the name of higher education. And probably through that, we can have the several lakhs crores of rupees available at the disposal of the government. So government must think, I request through this platform, how to arrange the fund through the corporate body, fully endorsing the view of Goel sir.
Idea of this webinar started by AICTE when they have guided the institutions to take it up and spread it across India. I'm really thankful. It's a wonderful, we get a lot of chance by having these kind of programs with us. And I want to thank in absentia our president, Mr. Manoj Thirani, for always promoting the events which we are continuously doing. And if you look into the Lloyd calendar, in a month, there are 4 or 5 events every single month are lined up, even in this situation of pandemic. I would like to thank our honorable group director for her guidance, and always she keeps on motivating for organizing such kind of programs in absentia once again. Now I'd like to thank all the panelists. Dr. Vikas Gupta he has left for some other meetings, but I would like to extend thanks to him with his clearly defining the national education policy for higher education. In fact, he was asking for that I cannot conclude it in half an hour. But when I requested, he said, okay, I'll keep it to the higher education. Will not deep down. I'll not go into the school education of NEP. Then I would like to thank Dr. Anil and the way he has explained that how the government has structured it, how the plans are. And it is very important for students even to understand that how their education is going to be. And of course, Dr. J.K. Goyal, it is always wonderful to listen to you, the way critically you analyze the entire document. It's absolutely wonderful. And definitely, when the panelists discuss all the things all together, they also see other side of the coin, and they keep on taking a lot of intakes, from the policies and everything. So it's a wonderful discussion, and I would like to thank all the faculties of Lloyd's Business School who have, made this event possible. And I would like to thank all the participants from Pan India. We got, some participations from deep down to colleges from the South also, from Northeast also. The faculties have joined in, and the academic administrators also joined in. So I'm really thankful to everyone to bring this program to a success. And